am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
I have a confession of a Horus Heresy level sin. I, in my 19 years of life, have never played the original Bioshock before, and I consider myself a fan of the immersive Shin genre. I adore the 2016 Prey and all of Deus Ex.
Come on, son.
Oh my god, Daddy!
What a shame. He was a good man. What a rotten way to die.
But I've never played Bioshock. So now, me, with a low amount of money and acquired Epic's free games, decided to go into my backlog and finally see, is Bioshock really a good game in 2022? First things first, what is Bioshock for the uninitiated, which was me when I first played? Bioshock is one of the very, very few commercial successes in the immersive sim genre made by 2K in Boston in Australia, set in the 1960s underwater objectivist city of Rapture, an absolutely gorgeous underwater city based on the ideas of free will and freedom of expression and market, with no limits, founded by the man Andrew Ryan, a character with a very large presence. We, a man named Jack, the most average looking man on a flight, crash into the ocean, landing near a lighthouse.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
This lighthouse takes us into Rapture, which we quickly find has fallen into complete and utter disrepair and chaos, as the people have gone crazy. These people have gone crazy because of Adam, the mysterious material that can give you ridiculous powers by rewriting our genetic code. Our goal is to help Atlas, the man who first helps us, get him and his family out, so we too can escape this gorgeous 1960s underwater hell. On the topic of beauty, let's preface something. I played the remastered version of this game and see the issues with it. Some effects look weird like lightning here, and when looking at them side by side, it's honestly really hard to tell which is better or even which I like more, but it's what I have. Regardless of the version of the game, the art style here is simply gorgeous. When first entering Rapture, you can get a feel of its architectural design. The team at Bioshock went for a geometrical art deco design that really shines here with the 1960s style. The design team chose this style based on the Rockefeller Center in New York, and it really is obvious. Rapture feels both futuristic in the sense that it is a city at the bottom of the ocean, and also real in the way things work. The buildings are block and functional, and the city has plenty of things that make the world feel alive. Everywhere you go, you're reminded you were in fact underwater with these amazing views from glass into the ocean, and the city beyond it. And we can even hear the water churning and the sounds of the ocean weighing down the city. Playing this in 2022 still feels like a breath of fresh air with this design, as it really isn't something you see at all. Underwater is really rare. The only two examples I can think of on the top of my head is Soma or Subnautica. Personally, I feel a sense of wonder in this once underwater utopia, as opposed to the fear of alien isolation or something like Soma. Inside the City is something I personally absolutely love, any setting like this. A world that was once beautiful torn asunder. I love in Dark Souls or Elden Ring how you can tell Anne Orlando or Nokron was once a beautiful thriving place that was lived in by many people, and you can imagine and see what it might have looked like. In Rapture, you can feel that no matter where you go, as the visual storytelling with the environment is simply superb, with all of the things that inhabit this environment making sense. The farmer's market, you can tell, was a pretty lively place where people used to happily shop. The Apollo Square is a place many people called home, now turned into a ruined internment camp during Rapture's war. In all of these locations, there are things that players can interact with that logically make sense in this world. Several big things are the vending machines. Originally, the team had this as a shopkeep, which didn't make too much sense in the context of Bioshock, so it fell into vending machines as they better speak to the player while simultaneously being something that makes sense in the world. I will say, however, if I hear this clown again, I will lose my mind. It is genuinely so annoying. Which was the goal, but still.
Ryan nationalised Fontaine Futuristics. He owns it now, lock, stock and barrel. For the good of the city, he says.
Welcome to the Circus of Value!
Hello, Gordon!
What makes this even better is this translates to all of Rapture's technology. It is a 1960s marvel, so you won't be seeing touch screens or high-tech instruments. Instead, what you get are bathyspheres, which I didn't even know existed until I played this game and looked it up. Projectors and their screens are used to communicate, and even the high-tech drones look steampunky yet feasible as they make this primitive buzzing sound as they fly around clumsily bumping into things.
There was a time I was happy enough to take off or turn a real circus freak into something.
There's an extensive use of color through my favorite aesthetic, that being neon lights. Seriously, how did these go out of fashion? Contrasting greatly against the deep outside and the ruined corridors of the area as you progress. The character models are actually the only thing that gives away that this game was from 2007. Enemies and allies all look like they belong to the time period with proper attire and mannerisms. Character models mostly seem to share the same skeletons with a lot of shared animations, but it works as you tend to encounter them in small groups. Those mentioned allies and enemies can show up in your radios as an icon in the right-hand corner in a black and white 60s style. I really like this. I cannot express how much I do. It reminds me of my grandparents' pictures. It actually is perfect. My only complaint is the two issues this causes for me. When meeting these characters, they tend to look nothing like I expected. Some people, I didn't even process they were that person until I saw subtitles or someone explicitly said it. Spoiler for a 14-year-old game, but when you finally meet Andrew Ryan, I think it's easy to see why. Facial animation isn't great, as well as the animation of the characters moving. Don't get me wrong, it isn't bad, and in some scenes it looks really good. It can feel odd at times. This is contrasted when you go into a meeting such as with Tenenbaum, which feels like a noir experience, or Atlas, who just kind of comes around and goes without a clear view. The reason behind this is actually fascinating. One reason is they couldn't afford to actually make other models, so a lot of what's here for main characters are actually reused, and I never knew this till looking it up.
We had such a small team that we had to show Tenenbaum or Atlas. They were just splicer models, right?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Tenenbaum was Ladysmith, which is there's a reason that she's in shadow behind glass, and it's not to be dramatic. It's because we couldn't afford to build another.
Really?
Yeah.
So just something as simple as that, like you couldn't afford to build a model.
We didn't have the we had a few character models in the game. There's
the budget
maybe
or the
8 or 9
time to build
character
a new
models.
character model,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
So we're like, oh, we'll put her in silhouette behind a light, and people think it's noir.
Another is, it was all done by Sean Robertson, the current art director at Ghost Story Games and former animation lead for the Bioshock series. And it was his first time ever rigging a character. This makes the experience even more impressive to me, as in perspective, he did the Big Daddy, which looks so crazy, so hats off to him. This honestly works out in the game's favor too, as helping build that isolated survival feel. It isn't alien isolation fear of being alone and what's around the corner, but if I were to make any comparison, it would actually be 2016 Prey. Enemies aren't scary most of the time, but they make you feel that stress and pressure of, do I want to take this encounter? How would I handle it? Or can I just avoid it? Even something as crazy as the Big Daddies are grounded in reality, being based off a real French diving suit. This spread out and grounded nature helps build up the main enemy, Splicers. The world feels like a reflection of the characters, and the characters are a reflection of that world's insanity, and all alike. All of this works even better with Rapture's no restriction capitalist objectivist society. Anyone has the right to their work and income, and you can feel this with all the shops and emphasis on working hard. The majority of this world plot is conveyed via a very large collection of audio logs, over an hour in fact. These convey both the overarching story as well as minor plots, giving more life and background to the world you inhabit. The voice acting here in those audio logs are superb, with a very inspired and grounded into this world feel. Every character speaks like they belong in the period with every quirk possible. Old mobsters sound like mobsters.
Now the eggs are in the scramble. We picked up Timmy Yates right after midnight. Either Ryan will be taking down Fontaine, or Fontaine will be taking down Ryan. We'll be interviewing for Timmy Fontaine Fisheries. If you're up for entertainment, the code's 5380.
Atlas fits the Irish stereotype.
1-2 punch! Remember, the 1-2 punch!
And Ryan fits that businessman from the 1960s.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
He's actually based on Walt Disney, so this makes sense. All of the lines are delivered excellently, as you can feel the stress, panic, annoyance, or passion in their voices. I heard this once described as a radio show, and you could totally do these with the audio logs alone. The writing here is great, with it being believable 90% of the time. My only complaint is it feels like they didn't make someone diverse enough. For instance, if they felt like they didn't make the German character German enough, they started making her use tons of German towards the end of the game, even though she doesn't really for almost like all of her life.
Shut! You
let him get away. Oh, I need a moment for thinking. A compression. This will be no problem. Find a big...
This attention to detail translates to every part of the game's audio work. The previously mentioned sounds of the ocean help you feel like you're really down there where no one can come to help, but also help the foreign land you are in feel otherworldly. Footsteps are loud and distinct in each surface, such as walking on metal or trudging through the breached water-filled areas. Areas are filled with a great amount of ambient sound from machinery and factories to the music that will probably DMC Amy even though it's old, playing all over and builds an almost somber vibe to everything.
I didn't know Fontaine had something to do with it. What are you doing? No, please. I loved you, dude. Don't, please, no. So kiss me and say you want to stay.
On top of real music, there is an ambient OST that plays over everything. It's subtle and works most of the time, as I honestly forgot it was there. The main inhabitants are the aforementioned splicers, addicted to Adam, which is used to make plasmids, which give you powers and rewrite your genetic code, but is highly addictive and has horrible side effects that translate to insane mumbling, fighting with each other, and other just weird sounds, such as scraping of weapons across the floor. Being able to hear enemies from a distance away in a tight area with these amazing audio makes the world feel even more lived in, even if it's by a psychopath.
I'm sorry, Father. I'll do what you say. I'll do what you say. Jesus loves me, this I know. For the Bible. Jesus, I'll kill your butt. I'll kill you.
The audio here is so good that the studio has said they use it to cover for the poor animation work at times here, and it works. I wholeheartedly agree that the audio drives a lot of this game's set pieces and makes it even better. Even poor animation work is covered by it. However, it stands out when it's bad, which is rarely, but the audio is unfortunately in gameplay. The SMG sounds really weak. The shotgun sounds strong and meaty. The handgun sounds alright. All the plasmids sound great. The audio work is really hit or miss here, and it might be up to preference after a certain point.
I'm not You can't commit to the cold, and you gotta grow.
Bioshock has always been praised for its gameplay, and now I can see why. In gameplay, Bioshock is not actually an RPG, and it wasn't what they were aiming for. Ken Levine described it as an FPS plus, and I can't agree more. Bioshock has traditional FPS mechanics with a variety of weapons varying from good to downright horrible. In my opinion, there are actually too many weapons in this game. Some are good like the handgun for a starter, and the shotgun always feels good. However, in my opinion, some just fall flat and don't feel good to use at all. The three that stand out to me are the SMG, the grenade launcher, and chemical launcher. SMG just doesn't hit hard enough and doesn't feel good to use. It feels more like a Nerf gun that you spit ammo out of. The grenade launcher I almost never used unless I had max ammo, as I felt I could accomplish more with the wrench and the handgun. The chemical thrower was only good to CC, and I don't think I actually have footage of it because it was so bad I didn't use it. The best weapon in the game is the crossbow though. It does stupid damage on all ammo types, and you can recover the bolts from the regular one. It was just really strong and made most weapons pointless to me as I defaulted to the crossbow once upgraded. Speaking of ammo types, it feels like these are cool but fall into rock, paper, scissors type of gameplay outside of a few things. Anti-personnel for fleshy targets, anti-armor for armor and machines, explosive for a single target, and electric to stun, lock, or trap. The ammo variety among the large weapon count does however create an issue. I played on the second hardest difficulty, and I still never once ran out of ammo. Given that you can do the thing that annoys me when it's not included, loot the enemy drop from enemy weapons, you have plenty of ammo for the entire experience. Although it's worth noting, I play in a way where I hack every single thing possible to make a robot army, meaning I don't use much ammo which isn't helped by the plasmids. Plasmids are the other key part of the gameplay. They tend to make up for this lack of detail in the guns. These things are introduced in a very in-world style and do a variety of things that can interact with the environment.
Light up foes to 1,000 degrees. Warning, fire spreads.
Shock jockeying can be used to stun enemies to get a free high damage tag with any weapon, but the old
Then whack 'em. 1-2 punch. Remember, the 1-2 punch.
works best. It can also be used on enemies standing in water to do insane damage, just don't be there yourself. It can also be used on busted doors to open them. There's a lot of utilities like that, for instance, fire for frozen doors or telekinesis to grab things far away or throw projectiles right back at the enemy. It really lets you be creative with combat. You swap these as well as your tonics, which are upgrades such as being invisible while not moving, which can just let you ignore drone alarms at Gene Bank. The main enemy you'll be using these tools on are splicers. They have a variety of tools that are supposed to take you down. There are the traditional melee grunts that get you stronger as variants as you go, gunners that do a decent amount of damage and have an okay amount of health, Houdinis are my least favorite, that teleport all over and use plasmas on you. Grenaders, well, they throw grenades, which can be pretty fun to use telekinesis and throw them right back at the enemies. There are a lot of fun details with the splicers. They used to be the populace, most opulent and poor, and will often ramble at something related to that. One detail as well is that they always miss the first shot, which was done to trick the player. Knowing that now is really interesting, and I feel like it's a really good way to trick the player, especially a player like me, who's used to diving for cover in Tarkov or shooting back instantly. The AI here for the splicers admittedly isn't good. They tend to rush you down or take positions out in the open with no care for their safety. In context, this actually works, as in the story they are driven crazy and on their need of Adam, so they are a mess mentally and physically. The difficulty of them is also weird, as in the beginning they start going down in like a shot or two or with a swing from your wrench. In the later half of the game, they become quite tanky, and you'll need to use the camera to gain damage buffs on them, but it tends to interrupt combat very often. That's one thing that's really annoying about combat, is that there's a lot of screens that will interrupt you, such as hacking or the camera. The second largest part of the combat loop is the local security. Drones, turrets, and security cameras litter the place and can be avoided or hacked. Turrets come in a machine gun and rocket launcher form. Both on closer inspection look absolutely thrown together. Like this is made of a plastic chair. I love the ingenuity and creativity behind it. Security cams will sick a ton of drones on you, constantly for 50 seconds, if you don't avoid or pay them off. Shock jockey or weapons electric ammo can stun them, allowing you to hack them, turning them friendly, including making cams send drones after enemies. Be warned though, as there is friendly fire, which the turrets sometimes feel like they're trying to hit you as they keep unloading into corpses. My only complaint with the security is the minigames. The puzzle's actually really fun every once in a while, but because you do it so much, so often, I get quite sick of it and started to just craft auto hacks to just not have to do it again. The game also has a soft upgrade system that was rare and relatively undone at the time for FPS games. Especially for console games, this still holds up well. It's nice that it isn't an overdone tedious upgrade tree like Far Cry, but an upgrade system determined by game plan choices. The previously mentioned Big Daddies and Little Sisters are how you get your Adam to upgrade yourself, as well as high quality upgrade materials. They have an iconic design you can recognize anywhere from not even playing the game. You do this by killing the daddy, and having the choice of harvesting the little sister for more Adam, but killing the child, or freeing them for substantially less. This does bring to an issue with how dying works. You get revived at these Vita chambers upon death with no consequences. Enemies keep the same health when you die, so you can cheese encounters you're struggling with. In the settings, you can set to reload to the last save instead, but it's kind of pointless. I personally wish these deducted money or had to be unlocked, as it would have made death more meaningful. Originally, they wanted to make it so you gain almost nothing from saving them, but the publisher feared a controversy, which I honestly understand. In the story, this is supposed to be a moral conundrum, as you were told by Atlas in a lot of audio logs, that the sisters are actually zombies with just slugs keeping them alive. So you can kill them and give them mercy for more Adam. However, in gameplay, this slightly falls flat, as you are told there's no way to save them, and then immediately given a method to save them with virtually zero consequences. On top of that, in the grand scheme of things, the save method is also better because of the fact you receive a gift after every 3 that contains a lot of Adam and useful materials, as well as tonics which buff and plasmids which are exclusive to saving. I will admit though, I'm a coward when it comes to being a bad person. In every Infamous, Fallout, Fire Emblem, XCOM, I can't not make a choice that's good and saves the most people. It's just who I am. I briefly mentioned there being crafting materials and looting. This is a major part of the gameplay and the world. The world of Rapture has a lot of little miscellaneous things that happen in it. You can eat various junk foods for health or drink alcohol to gain health but lose plasma points called Eve. Smoking can do the opposite, and I tend to avoid it, but you can get upgrades to decrease the negative effects and then buff the positives. You can't manage your inventory because it was originally planned to work like Resident Evil 4, but scrapped. So you can just use any consumables on pickup carrying crafting materials. This does create an issue with me who just grabs everything because who keeps drinking stuff. And just store money in your wallet when it comes from enemies and found as well as from hacking safes or just around the place. Materials can be traded at an invention station, which lets you make different types of ammo, buffs, auto hacks, and even some main mission items which will be needed, such as a tonic that can bring back life to Rapture's natural oxygen supply. Once you get your hands on the perks that enable you to cheaply make things that double the output, you essentially will always be full on anything you want, and it becomes easier than buying. Rapture itself, where you'll be doing all of this, consists of 14 open levels. You can explore all over these really large locations no matter how you want to, which is what I tended to do. I ignored main objectives to fully explore and hit all of the big daddies first, which works well in some sections but not in others. The main issue with this is the story reasons such as fixing a toxin, killing the plants for oxygen or Arcadia, where you have to find certain materials. Now you can tell you need some of these in the world, but you can't pick them up, leaving you to have to go back later into empty areas to grab things already passed when you get the quest eventually, somewhat punishing you for your exploration. The funny note is that the giant quest arrow I actually use for the opposite reason. It tells you where you're supposed to go, so I just ignored it just to see what else there was, which in the grand scheme of things was a great decision for me. This is because there are a lot of areas that genuinely are missable, such as Atlas's barracks where the Civil War propaganda and prep was done, and you can learn all about it there. The pure amount of things to do directly relates with the game's story, which if you don't want spoilers for, even though it's almost 15 years old now, go here. I'll be honest, there isn't much I can add to Bioshock story, so I'll just give you what I think of the story and what I love about it. The Bioshock story is something I've always heard is amazing things about, and now can finally say, yeah, it's amazing. Everyone likely knows the main points. You arrive on a plane crash, luckily landing right above Rapture, and are introduced to the main reason it exists. Fun fact, this intro was actually added incredibly late into development, and was quickly streamed together, which is amazing because it is genuinely amazing into this world. I will say, even a decade later, this has to be one of the strongest openings to a game I've ever seen. The Welcome to Rapture section is one of the most linear sections in the game, but it's as it needs to be because it serves an excellent introduction to our important beginning characters and gameplay. Andrew Ryan is given such an intense introduction that although I know you can't get hurt here, it really pushes you to get out as soon as possible. It's somewhat similar to Alien Isolation's intro, but you actually can get hurt there.
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches sent you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell. Or das Lavagna, Jerry.
The medical pavilion shows what the game really has to offer. The game has that semi-open world I mentioned earlier, but shows what it's really good at. Telling tight mini stories about a very specific theme, and it works really well with some stories being told through logs and ghost encounters, or in person. The medical pavilion is about what Andrew Ryan's no restriction society can do to the medical field that can perform any search they like, damn the consequences.
4-0 silk, and down.
The nose looks terrific, Dr. Steinman. Doctor?
You know, looking at it now, I didn't realize how much her face sags. Scalpel?
Excuse me?
Scalpel.
Doctor, she's not booked for a facelift.
Let's just come in here.
Doctor, stop cutting. Doctor, stop cutting. Get me the chief of surgery. Get me the chief of surgery now!
They do try a few scares in the player here, but in the modern day, I don't think these really work. Maybe when the game first came out they would, but nowadays they don't really get me. In this section, we get one of the few cutscenes where the control is taken away from us, as Ken Levine doesn't like taking control from the player.
Stay away from her, or it is you who will be shot next.
Easy now, Doctor. He's just looking for a wee bit of Adam. Just enough to get by.
I'll not have him hurt my little ones.
It's okay, lad. That's not a child. Not anymore, it ain't. Dr. Tenenbaum saw to that.
Bitte do not hurt her. Have you no heart?
Aye, that's a pretty sermon coming from the ghoul who cooked up them creatures in the first place. Took fine little girls and turned them into that, didn't you? Listen to me, boyo. You won't survive without the Adam those things are carrying. Are you prepared to trade your life, the lives of my wife and child, for Tenenbaum's little Frankenstein?
Here! There is another. Use this. Free them from their torment. I will make it to be worth your while. Somehow.
That is that moral conundrum I mentioned earlier that doesn't work for me. When you are given a method to save them, especially children, why would you ever kill them for Adam? Being only 200 down at the end of the game, saving them all makes no difference on how much you can get. Realistically, you can't get everything in one run, so why not just save the kids like Cool Cat? Yes, I made that reference. Neptune's Mounting and Smuggler's Den is the next area that tells the tale of Rapture's economic and moral issues. Rapture, as it turns out, isn't a utopia, and there are things people miss and want that Ryan forsakes because it's from the outside world and they can't risk exposing themselves to it. We learn that Frank Fontaine sees values where he does not, and makes a fortune via smuggling outside goods like music, religious items, alcohol, drugs, whatever they can get. Ryan, in fears of Rapture being discovered, goes against Rapture's idea of a free market already by executing smugglers. Frank Fontaine also doubled down on Adam and plasmids, which led to everything, but at the same time started to give him the ability to rival Ryan in his own city. That was, of course, before he allegedly died. However, everyone is still scared of him, it seems.
Not this. This isn't
Fontaine dead, and everybody knows it. In the ground for a month, and half the place still jumping at his shadow. Christ, even Ryan. You never mind all that. We got work to do.
Bioshock is already doing an amazing job of just not telling you what happened, but letting you experience the aftermath. I miss this in a lot of modern games that just tell you everything and don't let you discover a mystery. I'm looking at you, God of War 2. Atlas losing his family in our tale of escape quickly becomes one of vengeance for Atlas's family, as Ryan cuts off our means of escape. Arcadia Farmers Market feels like where the open nature of the map really begins to shine. You get to see what I think is a really neat question to answer. What do the people breathe in Rapture? It's trees and Arcadia, and it's the main plot point here with Ryan trying to kill them off in order to kill you. You go get Julie Langford's help and build a Lazarus formula to keep the plants alive.
Julie, we made a business deal, you and I, did we not? Money changed hands. Let me read to you from the agreement. Section 3, subsection 4.
Mr.
Ryan Industries maintains exclusive rights to the creation, use, and exploitation of the Lazarus vector. Ownership stabilization.
Wait! No! Please!
Without it, we're back in the swamp.
Mr. Ryan!
This, in my opinion, is the weakest character, as she's not too interesting and simply serves the purpose of moving the plot along, which isn't horrible, but kinda wasted. Finding the formula is actually where the game shines over, since you are let free. There are lots of areas that are hidden and require you to think a bit. It really is good at keeping you engaged and just wanting to go on. Engagement is what the next section, Fort Frolic, masters in my opinion in everything.
That's better. Atlas Ryan. Atlas Ryan. Da 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 da. Time was, you could get something decent on the radio. The artist has a duty to seduce the ear and delight the spirit. So say goodbye to those two blowhards, and hello to an evening with Sander Cohen.
Here we meet Sander Cohen, a psycho artist. To say the least, Cohen cuts you off from any communication outside of him and are tasked with completing his masterpiece. The development of a psycho and how those around him react to him are done amazingly through audio logs. I have to say here, the song Cohen's masterpiece is absolutely perfect for Bioshock. It emits that feeling of a tragic downfall of Rapture, and is the only reason I can remember Fitzpatrick as a one-off character.
Da 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 da! Presto! Presto! No, no!
I'm trying. Please. Once again, young Fitzpatrick.
Da 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 da! No!
Oh God, you sick fuck! Let me out of there! Come down.
Oh, little more. Life. Death. The burden of the artist is to capture.
also like how Gary Scheinman didn't know someone was going to blow up midway through the song, and he loved that. So take that as you will. Cohen is sick, and Rapture has enabled this rampage that he has set on for his art. Also, the flowers was chosen in this section to make the fight here more of a dance, and it works really well. Splicer's health are low here so that you can kill him faster, ideally with your wrench, but I put my guns to use. I also love at the very end of this section, after everything you are put through, Standard appreciates you and lets you go. You were given the choice to let him go, or not. I think that's really amazing. I feel in a modern game it would have ended very differently. This choice is also very important from an overarching perspective, which we will talk about later. Hephaestus is the next section, and where we get to meet the man himself. Ryan lives in a place of industry, as in many audiologues we learn that he respects hard work and people who know what they're doing.
I met Ryan the day me and the lads were installing the bathroom plumbing up in his Posh Park Avenue digs. Wait, says he, what's with all the brass fittings? General contractor had me down for the tip. Well, I says, I suppose it's the contractor then who will be bailing out your loo once a fortnight, is it? If it's price you're worried about, I'll be picking up the brass, so not to worry, Squire. And why would you be doing that, says he? Well, Mr. Ryan, profit or not, no man bails water out of privies built by Bill McDonough. Next day I finds out I'm Ryan's new general contractor.
So he'd of course be most comfortable surrounded by industry. We also find out Ryan's own people, and many of which we've heard in audiologues, planned to kill him in the Civil War, but it didn't work out. Making our way into Ryan's office, we get a twist even though I knew was coming, it is still almost perfect.
Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash. And then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master. Was a man sent to kill, or a slave? A man chooses. A slave obeys. Come in. Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
The speech of Ryan's ideals as we were forced to kill him after the build-up of it is pure poetry, and I love it. There are two story bits I'm not too happy here when it comes to the twist. I really don't like how the game basically tells you the twist right before the room, and during it gives you flashbacks. I think if the room was secret, it would have been better, or even better if it was after. I also think that the vision wasn't required, as I don't think players are that forgetful or dumb. Being able to naturally experience a twist with Atlas's dialogue right after killing him would have been perfect for me, but in the grand scheme of things, it really is a nitpick. The next twist, yes there's two, is Atlas is in fact Frank Fontaine and was conning a controller in you to do this.
Nice work by all. It's time to end this little masquerade. There ain't no Atlas kid. Never was. Selling my line of work takes on a variety of aliases. Hell, once I was even a Chinaman for 6 months. But you've been a sport, so I guess I owe you a new honesty. The name's Frank Fontaine.
I think this is really good, even now, to make sense of why the player's doing this. There are actually a few subtle red flags to the game, with how he tends to order you specifically, and sometimes uses American terms. Most people wouldn't just mow people down and go through what he did through, like the MC from Fallout 3 or Nathan Drake killing tons of people. Frank here, though, in my opinion, is almost too villainous. He constantly taunts you from this point 24/7, and it really just becomes cartoon villain levels of annoying.
Look around you. There's nothing to see. Rapture's a mausoleum, a goddamn cemetery funhouse. And you and the crowd is just ghosts. Just a matter of time till you realize. You think turning yourself into one of those tin men is a two-way street? The crowd's holding auditions for the Frankenstein parade, and you're first in line. I really wound you up with that wife and child bit. Oh, me poor Moira. I, me wee baby Patrick. Maybe one day I'll get me a real family. They play Belmore.
The next portion, we meet Tenenbaum in person for the second time and work with her to fix our conditioning. The next portion of the game admittedly is a bit of a slog with a noticeable dip in quality. We do, however, learn Frank Fontaine was the perfect villain to Ryan, as he opposed most of what he believed and actively was trying to ruin him. I almost feel bad for Ryan here, as he is forced to make these hard decisions against his ideals, but for the better, which turns the people against him.
Dr. Suchong, frankly, I'm shocked by your proposal. If we were to modify the structure of our commercial plasmid line as you propose, to have them make the user vulnerable to mental suggestion through pheromones, would we not be able to effectively control the actions of the citizens of Rapture? Free will is the cornerstone of this city. Thought of sacrificing it is abhorrent. However, we are indeed in a time of war. If Atlas and his bandits have their way, will they not turn us into slaves? And what will become of free will then? Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Faking his death, we learn in a missable area in a lot of the world's detail that Atlas was just a front to start the civil war against him so that he could have a monopoly on Adam, the longest and greatest con of all time. We go through here unable to control our plasmids, which is actually neat as I used plasmids I hadn't even touched before. If you spared Cohen, we also meet him here again. Tenenbaum gets really German here, as I mentioned before. I feel like the writers didn't feel like they made her German enough and went to quickly course correct, but course corrected too hard in the end. In this section, we get to become the Big Daddy, which narratively I think is really cool. As you've been seeing them around and working hard to kill them rather frequently, I really wish we could see more of the little sister Big Daddy stuff, but that was used for the second game. This is the section where exploration seems to hurt sometimes with you needing to grab certain things. This section does have the worst back-to-back parts, which is the end of the game. We have the dreaded escort mission, which is just bad. Don't get me wrong, being the Big Daddy, it makes sense, but it's just slow and annoying with how often she's going off in your ear about being slow, and even got stuck a few times for me. This definitely is a relic of its time.
Hurry, Mr. B! Hurry, Mr. B! Hop, hop, Mr. B! No time to waste! Hurry, Mr. Bubbles!
The last part is the boss, and it's just like really bad. It feels like it's from a different game, doesn't belong here. It even feels outsourced. We get two endings here. The good one I personally find amazing and heartwarming, with the evil ending being weird. It's just alright with you taking control of Rapture and waging war with exact weapons Ryan feared. This doesn't really work for me, and I think the base ending makes more sense, as where did you even get the nuclear sub? Did they keep it down there? In 2022, Bioshock really is a breath of fresh air compared to what we get now. The story is engaging and the world is rich. We don't have a Ubisoft world that feels empty and checklisty, but instead we have a world that feels natural in its decay and encourages you to explore for the sake of exploring and unraveling a mystery. Back in the day, this game was jumbled together and made on the fly, but still broke the mold and was something truly unique. And while a lot of the game's mechanics nowadays aren't exactly new and unique, and many people will find a familiar groove, this really is a game that holds up against the sands of time. It is an absolute must-play if you find the time, and I would love to see this game get another update, maybe with RTX. I'd personally play that again. Hello again, Malcador here, and I hope you enjoyed as I really love my experience with Bioshock. As usual, leave a like or dislike and tell me how you felt. I wish all of you luck now that school's opening up soon, or safety in your endeavors. Next video should be on Dead Space Remake. Much love and see you next time.